Oh my God. I'll have to do it by myself. Yes, I have it. Let's see, just one second.
Or I can pull it up.
Yeah, can you pull it up and share it?
Yeah, hopefully I'll be more successful this time. Trying to get to my...
Does anyone have any questions on what I've presented so far?
I have some questions. We'll be interested in what other people think as well. I'm wondering, because the way how I see you, Tricia, rearranging all the structures, like different paragraphs, I wonder if there's a particular, how do we consider the order, especially when we are unfolding our personal identity, which is always interlaid and weaved with many aspects. But what comes first, what comes second, in a way, almost like an onion unfolding itself. Is there a particular way we can approach it in terms of order?
I think that's your,
Oh, you got it.
I got it. So
you beat me.
So I think that's a question that is related to the order of your work. What is the most important thing to your work? So that's why I think for Veronica, the blending of the creative process between the artist and therapist, to me, that seems, out of what she wrote, that seems to be the most important. But what Susie mentioned seems like there's all this other information that is maybe more important that's not there. So, but I think we agreed with Kais that his background is what's most important. For me, if I were doing a statement for me, my background isn't really what I feel is the most important thing. My approach towards like those things, what I said about fear and finding who you are and bringing your individual light to the world, that to me is the most important thing. So that's might be what I would state, but I wouldn't say that I'm X years old and I come from, you know, the southwest side of Chicago. That's to me not important to what I'm doing. So then to the question of how do we see? Well, this is not exactly, we can't exactly see it, but she does talk about, so she actually has her why in the very beginning and what she's making. We don't exactly know what it is, but it is, we know that it is, we know the materiality. So maybe Bobby, you need to show us more. So only down here do we know that it's sculptures and collages.
No, it's mentioned in the third. Life's frustrations of the human condition are embedded into my abstract sculpture.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Installations, yeah. I have so many artist statements. This is an iteration that I have an iteration that starts, you know, well, that's for my bio, I guess. Chicago-based, no, that's a statement, Chicago-based, and it lists the, you know, like sculpture, installation, drawing it more
So I wouldn't start out with Chicago-based unless Chicago is your field of work.
Okay, good. I have this one.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of it's if you are really working with Chicago community and building Chicago. I also find based annoying because that means that you're not really going to be there for long.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
So why?
I've been here forever, so.
Unless like Chicago, like the disco world of Chicago's disco world was really important to your work in the 70s, then I would, you know, say that and feature that. Sonia, are you still with us, Sonia?
I don't think she ever got unmuted.
Oh.
I see her picture down there.
Because I was wondering if she was gonna ask, or she could tell us about your work. Does anyone have other questions? I'm going to try to find yours, Susie. Or we can, oh,
I
go
have one
ahead.
more question.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. I'm
Oh,
unmuted.
Sonia, go ahead.
Sonia, how would you describe Bobby? And I mean, how Bobby and her work? What did she say to you?
Okay, she said, she asked me if I was familiar with Louise Bourgeois, and I said no, but her work vaguely. And she went into how she gave me a brief sketch of her life and how it influenced her work, which is mostly like sculpture. She wire wraps furniture. I don't understand exactly what the process was. There wasn't that much time, but yeah. And I asked her if she exhibits around town somewhat, and so you know, and she leads a very, very full life, being married with children, and service work, civic-minded service work that she does. So she leads a full life, and I have to see her work.
So we never see, Bobby, do we see furniture in your,
Not in this statement, no.
okay.
Okay, so
Should that be there?
yeah, I mean, I have statements that have that in it. And they talk about soft sculpture. So it's interesting. Maybe this is there's some details missing.
Yeah.
And I'm
Okay.
interested because you said the why was the first thing you read. So that's good because I wasn't sure it was present.
Wasn't the why you're influenced by Louise Bourgeois that has sort of set you off?
She's the why is, the reason I brought her up is because her work was derived out of a childhood trauma.
Ah,
And that's how my work has proceeded out of
similar influences, not influenced by.
Do we
influence, yeah.
Do we see that childhood trauma in your essay, in your artist statement?
You know, I've fooled around with that on occasion. Sometimes I've brought it up, but I've kind of not brought it up.
And so why
I
did
want to
you
go
mention,
into, I know, I don't want to talk about what the trauma was.
but why
So-
did you mention it to Mary and then not in the statement? I mean, not Mary, Sonia.
Yeah, because we were talking about, what was the question about, why you make what you make or something like that, right? I think the why, it was, for me, it kind of addresses the why.
Okay. So
I mean,
maybe you want to put that in there. I'm trying, do you have it so that you can bring it up? I've kind of lost it now.
I don't know, I never got it up either.
Okay.
I'm so bad at this, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm not great at either, but I have Susie's now up.
Good,
Which I'm gonna share Susie's. So Susie did something which I recommend all of you to do, to write a brief. You probably have a long statement, so write a long one, make it really, you know, as long as you want. And then you can, so kind of what I did with Kais is when I moved the parts of it down, just keep on moving the parts down that that aren't as important. So your first part is the most important. How we did with Kais, we put his being Palestinian at the top and we moved all the other stuff down, and we moved Robert Smithson down because, and maybe for the short one, the brief one, because sometimes you'll find for these applications, people want really short ones, which is a pain because you've, you know, written this beautiful statement, but you have a word count limit. And so that's why these things are gatekeepers, because they just, so I think I like this longer statement. See, the longer statement says my work is concerned with how barriers form, ossify, and dissipate. The first statement says I'm an artist and writer living in Chicago whose work is concerned. We do not want to hear your work is concerned. That's why I gave you all those verbs, so that you can get rid of work, my work is concerned, or my work looks at, or my work approaches, I touch around, get to the heart of the matter. And so, you know, if my work is overthrowing the system, it's not concerned with overthrow. It is overthrowing the system. So that's why, so I think, well, that's my, I don't know how to, I can't change this for here, but so Susie does say born in Mexico City. I grew up in Latin American Jewish communities at a time of its deindustrialization, and my upbringing informs my ongoing focus on human dynamics, how buildings, domestic objects can symbolize relationships, and the narrative potential harbored by various sites. If I can't even say it while I'm reading it, Susie, I'm not attacking your, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little excited here. But if it's too long and too wordy, I don't understand what, I love how you've said where you come from and how that informs your focus, but I don't understand what human dynamics are, how buildings and domestic objects can symbolize relationships and the narrative potential. So your question is, that you asked me, how can you show that? And Veronica, what did Susie say to you that she does? Like what does she make?
It's project based. So tables, she specifically mentioned tables, per relationships. Yeah, that's the one thing I remember, the table making.
So Susie, I don't see anything with tables here.
So Tricia, this is,
one?
yeah, well, I got into the specifics of 2 projects that are upcoming, but what I mentioned to Veronica were engravings on kitchen tabletops, paintings on paper, town hall meetings, videos staged in sites of scientific testing, or on a seismic shake table specifically. As you know, my work shows up in a lot of different ways. So those were the tangible examples I mentioned.
So the tables,
so I can get that in.
So do the tables symbolize the domestic objects and the relationships and the narrative potential?
Yeah, I could reframe this to talk about why I choose very specific environments that have freighted layers of history, or why an engraving on a kitchen table is standing in for relationships.
Yeah, that would be perfect. And then you can, so that's a good example where you could say you do that and you use that in tables. And then you also use that same process for other domestic objects and then extend it to buildings and sites, or however you do that. So that you give a kind of way that your artwork works in one project, and then you attach that same process, kind of like Veronica, how we looked at how you approach things from an artistic lens, but that also goes over, and that same process is approached or is used in the other field or another body of work. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have another question?
Hi, Tricia. This is Rosalind. I wanted to circle back to the terminology about being a Chicago-based artist, and I appreciated what you said in terms of responding to the word based. I was curious if you also felt that way if it was being used in a bio instead of an artist statement.
Oh, that's a good question, because there's different things for different, yes, it should probably be Chicago. I mean, that's my own personal opinion about Chicago based. So use it as you feel fit. Like if you want to say I'm a Chicago artist or Chicago based, but that would probably be best in a bio. But a bio can also be, you know, the same kind of, why are you the way you are? And why do you do this? Keep on, like, it's really digging deep. So your bio shouldn't necessarily be, well, I went to the School of the Art Institute, or I went to UIC, and I have this career and that career, unless it's really important. And so I think also going back to Kais said that he has 2 masters. And so somehow that should come out, because that's his propensity to really dig in deep into this work of unearthing this history of trauma and colonialism. And so, and that he approaches this work from not just an artistic perspective, but also this deep research. And then he brings all these tools to discuss this. So did that answer your question? I went off a little bit.
I think so. I realized that certainly the bio and the statement are 2 different organisms, even though they have some relational qualities. And I was just curious on your perspective. I think I always say Chicago-based in my bio. I wouldn't ever necessarily say that in my statements. I was just curious on your perspective of that, or if you felt like, I mean, that's not exactly what we're talking about, but I was curious.
Yeah, I would say yes. If you're from Chicago, say it. I mean, years ago, it used to be a bias against Chicago artists, but I think that's slowly changing, probably to the work of Carrie James Marshall and Theaster Gates and Michelle Grabner and others. But yeah, people, and Dawood Bey, but like Dawood used to sell his work in New York and couldn't sell it here in Chicago. So, but I think people are more interested in Chicago artists now than they used to be. So yes, include it.
Thank you.
Tricia, could you show mine again? I just want to see the where you place something that.
Oh yeah, let's see. Do you see that?
No, it's not sharing yet.
Okay. So we didn't really
Can you just scroll down? Oh, okay. Good. Wait, right there. Okay. Thank you.
So same with this, I am most drawn to. So why are you most drawn to it? What calls you to that? And we have that whole section of verbs. So no, I do what with collage? And same with equally vested. You know, in times like these, we need to be warriors. So we can't be vested in things. We have to dive full in. At any time. And this, I like this. Maybe this, what about just say, I choose? Like a therapist, you choose whatever is the most, you know, whatever's needed. Well, whatever verb, or so it could be all this. I mean, it's a very wordy, I don't like really wordy things, because then you're not really discussing stuff. But you could even not, you could take all this out.
as our therapist, the modality parts are key because people want to know what modalities you're coming from, and that informs people choosing
Okay.
working with you versus working with someone else. But I see what you're saying. If just on the artist part, then that's not key. So it's about parceling out audience, what's the purpose, if it's for our therapy purposes or if it's for art purposes. That makes sense.
Well, it's also for what I was trying to do with yours is to show how that you kind of like what I was talking about with Susie, the way she approaches a table to bring out personal stories is the same way you approach both art and therapy. You use whatever is the needed, whether it's collage, photography, printmaking, creative writing, dance. And then similarly as a therapist, because I think there is a real strength in being a therapist and an artist. And that is what we were talking about, what is unique about you. You are a therapist and an artist that approaches these two fields, these completely different fields, from the same kind of place of trust and knowing where to go and to support oneself to be grounded. And so that is key. And then to delete that and say, oh, well, I'm going to do art for this one, that seems to be, to me, to miss a kind of, not even a kind of, to miss a strength that I don't have, and that you have. And that when you said about this Oz down here, I mean, this is also really fascinating. How can you say that you approach then on the other side, how you approach art as a way of knowing oneself and as an utmost commitment to remind yourself to bring your own worth, power, and life potential through your art. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does anyone have any other questions? We are now a half hour. I don't mind, but I just, I mean, I love artist statements because they are on the front, a barrier, but actually they're a super rich tool if you use them for self-exploration. If you use them as a, like, oh, I gotta write this stupid thing, then it's kind of a waste of your time. But if you really use it, what am I making? Why am I drawn to make that? Because of who I am, and what do I want to do with it? And how can I either influence the world or influence the medium that I'm using, or both? Or can I just change myself to be a better person, or to live better in the world, or to treat others better, or make beautiful objects, whatever it is, somehow knowing or unpacking all of this, who I am, why I'm doing this, and how I'm doing it.
I feel that one common challenge with the artist statement is just like us creating artwork. Sometimes we're so close to it that we just couldn't see it that well. So creating that distance from our artwork and ourselves, or maybe the artist statement, just like now reading someone else, or having someone else to tell you what they kind of get from your own artist statement. I think that was really helpful, but it feels like it's not something one person could do by.
So Winnie, who met you, or who met with you?
Rosalind.
Is Rosalind still here?
Yes, I am still here.
Rosalind, do you mind saying who, and feel free everyone to drop off as there are many competing needs, I understand. So, but Rosalind, you have to introduce Winnie before you go.
Sure, no, I'm happy to do this. So let's see here. So Winnie is an artist who has a socially engaged practice, and she has work that is both community-based and socially engaged, but also is an interdisciplinary artist and does site-specific work as well. And so there's a lot of change and variety in the types of materials as well as processes that she's interested in. Oftentimes, as a starting point, Winnie might reference a poem, but also is interested in responding directly to Chinese characters and the work that she produces. And well, let's see, referring notes here. It's in terms of why Winnie is making the work that she's making, she wants to shape the future with the present, which felt really compelling to hear. In terms of the place that Winnie is making work, I think that also is depending on whether or not it's site specific or if it's something that can be produced in the studio.
Does anyone know who Winnie is? Did anyone hear who she was? So, okay.
We have touched on very briefly from being an artist from Hong Kong, and then using the Hong Konger identity in some of the work. But that also focuses on almost like birthplace and cultural background.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would somehow figure out how that is infused in your work. It seems to me like process and socially engaged practice is really interesting. Did people hear this statement? I like the desire to shape the future. Oh, wait. What is it? What was it?
I wrote down in my notes that Winnie said she was interested in shaping the future with the present.
What does that mean? But it is like, that is a powerful sentence to start with, like as an artist statement. Isn't that more powerful than I'm a Chicago-based artist?
Yes, and to Winnie's credit, she did speak about her influences as being from Hong Kong, and I failed to mention that because I couldn't read my own handwriting. So
well, that's okay. I mean, it's not like, but we don't really hear how her background, unlike, like same with Veronica, we didn't really hear what, there was so much information about her background that she told to Susie, but we didn't see it in the statement. And I don't have Winnie's statement here, but we see more about the work that's being done rather than how your background. So maybe like me, the background isn't necessarily what's informing the work. Although with the one thing, does anyone know what this work looks like from what Robin, what's
Rosalind? It's
Rosalind.
like the flower. It's okay.
Rosalind, does anyone know what Winnie's work looks like? Or what it is?
Probably not.
Okay. So we did see, I heard Chinese characters. That's the only visual that I got. So somehow, either your work is really process-based, but somehow, like I don't think we're seeing enough of what everyone's working on. I think I saw the most in Bobby's work, because we saw the materiality, but we didn't really see what Bobby was making.
Sounds like, is it right to say that in order to help create the seeing, the visual part of it, we can make use of the materials And because seems like material is so tangible. So if I say canvas, Chinese text cut out on canvas, then you can imagine roughly what it might look like. Things like that.
If that is what your work is predominantly, so like Susie's, when we talked about the table, that table fits really well as a good indicator of how she uses a domestic object to talk about these other issues. If canvas and Chinese characters get into all of these socially engaged practices and site-specific work, if it can function to elucidate that, then go for it. But if it is just one work, then I think with Kais, his site is so important that he could talk about one work where he talks about a site that isn't living up to its historical character, and that would be in service of all of his work. Or he talks about one site or one investigation of site and the kind of approach, the historical approach that he uses, then we understand his work in terms of site. Does that make sense to you, Kais?
Yeah, you're saying to focus on like try to explain at least one, even that like in my work the aesthetic really change from one work to another work. So do you recommend to specifically talk about at least one example in the art statement that is
if one example can help us visualize what the process is, or if one, like, usually, you mean, you have to go through this process anyways when they say include 5 images. So yeah. You have to try to think of, oh God, what 5 works really show my body of work. So you try to find one image that shows how you approach work and how, or the most successful work that kind of embodies everything you're trying to do. So then think of that work, and then kind of how do you describe it? So when Bobby talked about the materials, yes, Winnie, the materials are important in Bobby's work, but she never mentioned that she's making furniture. So we don't know that it's furniture or that it's sculpture so much. And pantyhose are important to her. So, and pantyhose are in a lot of her works, but it's like you could say, for Bobby, she could say, I use seductive materials to think of bodily functions. And then like seductive materials that are often in multiple forms, using pantyhose, layers of lace, fabric. So then you get this scent, and then she says, why? Because it's showing sweaty bodies, trauma, juices, so then you're kind of seeing. I often use furniture so people are forced to engage with the sensuality or the feel of these materials. And so she's not always making furniture, but she often uses furniture. I mean, all this is so complicated in a group because, and it's so complicated as it is in a group because you're all doing different things, but that's also the same with your individual practices because you're doing so many different things in your individual practice. So you want to tease out the works that most encompass the way you approach your art making and why. So it's now 2:37, so, but it is recording, and I think what I'm gonna do is do a demo without, or I can do someone's later if someone wants to do it over with me, or if you wanna do it over with me so that I tape it, then we can go more into your individual one, if you wanna do that. I don't know if you want to. But
I'm totally interested in feedback, but I don't know if I'm brave enough to have it recorded, but maybe I should be.
Well, you guys can think about who you want to do, who wants to do it. And I could actually do it tomorrow at this time, at 1 p.m. tomorrow, if anybody can do it then. Or if someone wants to stay on now, I could, well, tomorrow would be better for me, but I just feel bad that I didn't tape it, sorry.
And what, I'm just curious as to what then the recording would be used for.
It would be used to show this process of the who, how to get through your, how to use this process to get rid of a lot of excess words and to really hone in, dig down to get to what your artist statement, how the artist statement can serve you. Because it's
Well,
like,
I get that part, but I'm saying who is the audience? Who would then have?
Oh, it would just be on our website so that if somebody couldn't attend, like, yeah, so you would be recorded. So if somebody didn't attend, they could just watch it and click it on. Oh, okay.
I'm okay with it and available tomorrow.
Okay.
That would be so nice. Yeah.
All right. So I'll have the same chat open tomorrow, the same Zoom link open tomorrow at 1 if anybody wants to go through theirs, and we'll go through some of the same process. Does anybody else have any questions as long as you're still here?
I feel like I have to rewrite mine and then I'd be very game to do it. I don't know if other deadlines are going to allow me to do that by tomorrow, but this has been really instructive, so thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah, okay, well, I hope it was of help, and feel free to shoot me your artist statement when you do rewrite it, and I can't 100% guarantee that I can work through it, but I can at least read it and kind of give you a thumbs up or say work on this section, or you know, where are you in this, or where's the work, I don't see it. And I will also send out the PowerPoint. I think the best thing is, to me, it's that George O'Keeffe one, because it's just so simple and you immediately can see what she makes and why she makes it. It doesn't really talk about her, but she does talk about why she's interested in it. So, but for her, maybe, like, as I said, sometimes who you are is not necessarily important to why you're doing it, but the why is definitely the most important. So shine your light on the world and do great things, and don't let fear stop you. Use it as a, when you feel the fear, check in with yourself and maybe write that down and say, this, I'm afraid of this thing. This might be where I need to make my work. So thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.